And we are back, and we just finished watching 2019's Saint Maud, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 24 minutes. This movie we saw on Prime.
Amazon Prime.
And is the story of a young nurse named Maud who is sent to... she's like a hospice nurse, so it's like end-of-life care.
Yeah, she's taking care of sick lady.
And how she... in a previous, I guess, work experience, had some kind of strange...
Yeah, I get the impression she worked at a hospital, and I guess somebody died while she was administering CPR or something.
Right.
You only get little clips and fragments of it, but it looked like something went wrong.
Right.
Like she was pressing too hard, or I don't know what.
Right. And then you
I think that broke her.
Yes, and then like even an old coworker of hers kind of alludes to it, but it's very vague. They never really specifically say what happened, or although she does say, I hope you know it wasn't your fault or something.
Yeah.
And that we should have been more, I guess, attentive to her after the incident. And I guess Maud went mad. Maud, who was actually Katie, I guess, in her previous life.
Yeah. And I guess she's somehow, in her broken state, somehow, found religion or whatever. I don't know.
Big time. What'd you think?
I didn't really like this movie.
Really?
No,
it was better than We're Going to the World's Fair. Another movie that we tried to see. Actually, we did see it, although I slept through some of it, I think.
The whole thing. It was just god awful.
And it wasn't scary.
It wasn't scary. It was just boring. I mean, we're talking about a totally different film, but We're Going to the World's Fair there was probably maybe 20 minutes of actual footage in that movie, and the rest of it was just meandering nonsense.
Yeah. So as we close out Women's History Month, we wanted to look at women directors. I guess we ended the month on a low point because we weren't impressed with Marie Antoinette. We certainly weren't impressed with We're Going to the World's Fair. I actually like Saint Maud.
I mean, it was, of those three, Saint Maud is the best one.
But you still didn't think too much of it.
It was moody and atmospheric or whatever. It just didn't. The story didn't grab me.
There is one scene at the end, towards the end, where you're like, okay, what just happened?
I mean, it's clearly all of that was in her head.
Right.
Yeah, there wasn't really.
I
hate giving away spoilers or anything, but this isn't really a good movie. So
I don't agree. I think it is. I mean, I don't think it's not Hereditary or Midsommar, which we have to get on the docket at some point. I forgot how good Midsommar was. I caught a bit of it the other day, and I was like, you know what? We got to watch this again. But getting back to Saint Maud, I disagree. I think that there is a fine line between sanity and insanity, and I think that the filmmaker here, I think she leaves it to your own interpretation, right? I think that she presents you a story, and you can think whatever you want about that story. I mean, there were certain things in the story where you're like, okay, this is, like you said, this is all in her head. But at the same time, there's other parts of the story where you're like, maybe this is a thing.
Like what?
The scene where she levitates.
That was in her head. She's fantasizing all of that. It's as real as the wings she had at the end of the movie.
I don't think so.
No, that was all in her head. None of that. There are films that, is it really happening or not? And the reason why you wonder about stuff like that is because other people are affected by it. Let's take like Pan's Labyrinth. Mm-hmm. How the labyrinth opened up at the end of the movie for the little girl to escape or get away from the general. Mm-hmm. Or how she escaped her room. There clearly was something going on there that she was able to do that. So yes, there could have been there's more evidence towards a supernatural thing. In Saint Maud, there's nothing like that. There's nothing that she experiences or does that affects anything but her. It all is just stuff that she is seeing and is affecting only her. It's not like as though there's like the moment where you think, the sick woman is experiencing that ecstasy or whatever. But she wasn't. She's just going along with the kooky nurse that she got. Because she basically says, dying is boring. She's just playing along with it. So Maud floating, Maud hearing the creepy voice, Maud having golden, amazing wings just sprout from her back for some reason. All of that was just her insanity. She was a woman who something really traumatic happened to, and she lost her mind. And unfortunately, and lots of real world parallels here, a lot of broken people turn to religion.
Sure.
And she turned to it hard. There's got to be a bigger purpose for me. I know you have a better purpose for me. When are you going to reveal your purpose for me? They were like waiting for this thing to happen. And when it just doesn't happen, they manifest it themselves in some sort of berserk delusion that they're saving somebody. I mean, yeah, she really saved that lady. And then at the end, if anything, the end shows. And I joked about this before we started the podcast. That little fraction of a second of film footage at the very, very, very end was her mind snapping back to reality and realizing, I think I made a mistake. Because like she's like, this is the arms raised, rays of light, people on their knees with their hands in the air, and then
It's not so pretty anymore.
Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, you've gone down a path and there's no turning back now. Yeah. And I think you were wrong. And you kind of realize you were wrong there at the last fraction of a second. It wasn't like some sort of serene surrender to the afterlife or anything. It was horrible.
Yes. I agree with you, but I think that the way the story is presented, it leaves room for interpretation.
That's the thing. I don't believe it does. Like I said, if there were things in the film that were affecting anything other than her, I would be like, okay, so there's some room for interpretation. Like I said, with Pan's Labyrinth, something's going on there, I said that again. But something is going on there where you could be like, oh, what's really happening? Is this reality? Is this fantasy? I don't know. And it makes you really want to like see it and interpret it and guess. This one, it's really, everything is just stuff that's affecting her. It's not changing the outside world at all. The other people aren't affected by it at all. So, yeah, I believe it's all like, she's just nuts. There's nothing supernatural about that. She's just batshit crazy. And it's religion. It's, religious fanaticism. Fanaticism. It's craziness. When you give yourself over so totally
to something, you're thinking, oh, this is going to guide me. This is it's God's will. I'm just waiting for him to speak to me. And then he speaks to her, and even he's just like, you're going to know what to do. Even God's vague.
Yeah, even God is just kind of jerking her around. It's just like, what do I do? You know exactly. That's like, I don't know. It's just weird. It just didn't work for me.
All right, fair enough.
It was kind of too slow and yeah, it just didn't work for me.
I don't know. I disagree. I actually really liked it a lot. I still think that there is room for interpretation. I think that it was sort of vague enough where someone could look at it and be like, well, maybe something is really happening. I understand what you're saying, and I think that you're probably on the right path, but I also think that the way the story is told, it's supposed to make you feel like there might be another alternative. But I think I agree with you. I think, like I said, at the end, I think the end sequence definitely is kind of like the slap in the face, like, oh, this is really happening kind of thing. So, and I really liked all the performances. I think the way it's shot, it's very moody, it's very dark.
Yeah, I mean, it was
a lot of atmosphere.
Yeah,
really well done. I think it's weird enough where you're kind of caught in this sense of dread throughout the story. You were really wondering. There's something also very Spartan about, even when she goes to live with the patient has this fantastic, beautiful house. But even in the house, they're almost like these like little pieces of being in these big spaces, and it's like it's I don't know how to describe it. It just felt very like, and even when they're in the house, they feel very isolated. They feel very set apart from everyone else.
Well, I think they're setting the mood as far as like this is the home of somebody who's dying. Like she can't even go up the stairs anymore. Like if you notice, she lives down on the first floor.
Right.
All of the parts of her life in the past are covered with like all those posters and whatnot were just draped over. Like she doesn't want to see it anymore.
Right.
She was this vibrant dancer, famous dancer, and now she's basically bedridden, losing all her hair, dying of lymphoma or cancer, some sort of cancer. So yeah, it's supposed to be like that. I believe it's like the end of life, and no, I agree with you 100%. They did a good job as far as the sets, the lighting, the mood. I thought everybody's performance was good. It just wasn't really a compelling story for me. I don't know. There was not much grabbing my attention. It was kind of a slow burn that I feel it probably could have been wrapped up in 20 minutes, half hour.
I don't think it could have been wrapped up that quickly.
Yeah. There's a lot of nothing. There's a lot of nothing going on in that movie.
I disagree. I mean, the scenes where she's sort of like out on the town getting drunk, that probably could have been gotten away with.
That was her, I guess, losing her faith momentarily before refinding or rediscovering her faith, or fanaticism, I should say. She was going to fall again. So I think that was the purpose of that. But yeah, that did go a bit too long. There was some activities occurring that were just a little bit I didn't really need to see them for that long.
It didn't really add to the story.
Yeah. Like I said, it just didn't grab me.
All right, fair enough.
I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's just
All right. The
trailer made it seem much more interesting. Although I got to be honest, the trailer didn't really grab me either. You've been trying to get me to watch this movie for a while.
Yes, it's been on my watch list for a while now, so I'm glad we got it finally out of the way. But
the trailer made it seem like more horrific.
Yes, it does. It does.
This, like I said, it's not a lot happens. I mean, there is like the bits of violence in there, like a bit of violence. Viewing I guess in her delusion, it gets a little intense there, but yeah, not enough to satisfy me after sitting through. How long was this movie?
It was only an hour and 20 something minutes.
So probably an hour
80.
an hour and 15 minutes, or an hour and 5 minutes. Nothing until that scene. I mean, yeah.
I disagree, but to your point, I still think that her losing her faith kind of segment could have been gotten away with. They probably could have done more of her in her insanity, just killing or being this instrument of justice for God. Like that would have maybe been more interesting to see.
Well, I wouldn't even say instrument of justice. It's not like she killed anybody who deserved it.
No, but in her mind, she's rationalizing the stuff that she's doing.
And I don't even think she wanted to do that. It was just she lost her mind. Like she was just in full mania mode there. It just like I said, this could have been wrapped up in like 20 minutes, a half hour. This was like
I think you need more than 20 minutes, half an hour to tell this story.
If there was more meat to it, but this was pretty Spartan. There's a lot of time that goes by in this film where it's just sort of, I don't know. It just wasn't really that interesting.
I don't know. I disagree, but
all right, you could disagree. It didn't work for me. It worked for you a little bit better than me, but I get the impression you don't think this is like the greatest film either.
I didn't say it was. Okay, I'm just saying that I think you're being a little bit overly critical, maybe? I don't know.
I don't feel I'm being overly critical. It's just not that interesting a movie.
All right.
For me, it just wasn't that interesting. I got the point. Yeah, she's religious, and maybe they could have gone a little bit more in depth as to what the incident was that actually happened.
Yeah, I wish they had focused on that, but I think I think the filmmaker wanted to be very vague about it.
They maybe could have done more with the friend from the past. I mean,
but when she's uncomfortable because I was like, is she gonna kill her?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You could have done a little bit more with that. It was just like the friend jabbering nonstop in the background while she just stares out the window, and I don't know, nothing really happens. And it just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed weird to me. It just felt like, oh, this is there to build a little bit of tension, but no real payoff there. Yeah.
All right. I think this is one of those movies where you either like it or you dislike it. So you disliked it. What would you give it 1 to 10?
I'd give it a 5. It's just, it's average. There's nothing really great about it. Like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's not really okay. It's just there.
I disagree.
If you want to, anything would probably be more interesting than this.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, maybe that's too harsh, but there's a lot of more interesting things out there to watch.
I think
this was dull.
I disagree. I think it has merit. I think that for a first-time director and writer, Rose Glass, this is a really good effort. I think would there have been parts of this film I would have changed? For sure. I mean, I think that in hindsight, when you look at something like this, you could pick it apart and be like, well, they should have done this, they should have done that, they could have done this, they could have done that, obviously. But I think for the story, I think it was really tight. It was really tense. The performances were really good all around. I think the production values were decent. I thought the story was super interesting. Again, you're talking about this, walking this line and using religion as kind of the catalyst to tell this story. I mean, this could have been a zealotry about anything, but here it's religion and how this woman's newfound religion impacts her and in turn impacts the people around her. Specifically, this one patient that she has that she's looking after who is going through end-of-life care. I'm going to give this film a 7. I think that it's definitely interesting. I think for a first-time director, writer, I think it's really, really well done. I think it's interesting. I think the performances were all good. Yeah, I would recommend it.
All right, giving it a 5. It was just average. I didn't think the story was tight at all. It was very slow-paced, too slow. They didn't delve enough into her past. Yeah, they could have. There were tools there they could have done that with the friend. They didn't take advantage of that. Just wasn't that interesting.
All right. This episode of the podcast is dedicated to my BFF, who is also a lover of horror films. I don't know if I would categorize this as horror exactly. Maybe more of like a thriller.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say the trailer makes this seem like a horror movie, but
right.
If
really
you're
not.
That's another thing. If you're looking for a horror film and you see this trailer, don't watch this movie because you're going to be disappointed. It's not really a horror film. It's more of like a psychological
thriller. Yeah.
Thriller. Yeah, I guess. Although that's not really thrilling.
Again, this episode of the podcast is dedicated to my BFF Leo on his birthday. Happy birthday, honey. Leo and I have been friends for a very, very long time. And as we wrap up Women's History Month, I wanted to pick a film from a woman director who also is amplifying women's stories. I think that Maud here could have used better women friends in her circle. Unfortunately, she didn't have that. I fortunately do have a wonderful tribe of people in my life, Lenny being one of them, and I am very, very lucky. So happy birthday, my love, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so a 5 and a 7. Again, I still think this is worth watching. I think it's definitely a better film than the last couple of ones that we've seen. So if you are so inclined, head on over to Prime and check out Saint Maud from 2019, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 24 minutes. Again, this is written and directed by Rose Glass and is the story of someone slowly losing their grip on reality, I guess. And that's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.